Have you ever looked back and realized that was the moment? The exact second your life began to fall apart? For me, it was a hotel bill. One line of text. Her name. A local address. And a room service bill for two, including a bottle of champagne. My wife said she was on a business trip 900 miles away. In reality, she was 15 minutes away in silk sheets with another man. I thought we were the perfect couple. With good jobs, a beautiful home. But behind all the dinners and vacation selfies, she was planning a new life. This story isn't just about betrayal. It's about a woman who lied with a smile on her face, and how her perfect little fantasy fell apart, one lie at a time. And somehow, I ended up going on vacation with the last person I could have imagined. Fasten your seatbelts. Because what started with a feeling turned into the craziest adventure of my life. My name's Luke. I'm 36, live in a decent-sized town, the kind of place where you still wave to your neighbors, but nobody really knows each other anymore. I work as a systems consultant. Not the most exciting job, but it pays well and I like structure. I like plans, spreadsheets, routine, stability. I met Jessica when we were both in our early 20s. She was a firecracker, smart, gorgeous, and sharp as hell. She worked in medical sales, always dressed to impress, always knew how to work a room. Our friends used to joke that she could sell a heater to a desert dweller. That confidence was part of what drew me to her. We dated for a couple of years, then tied the knot. All in all, we were together for 11 years, married for 8. We didn't have kids. That was something we agreed on early. Not because we didn't like the idea, just felt like the timing was never right. We were building careers, chasing promotions, traveling. We bought a nice 2-story house with a big backyard, fenced in with cedar planks I stained myself. Took vacations twice a year. Italy one summer, Banff another. From the outside, everything looked great. But early this year, things shifted. Not all at once, not dramatically. It was more like a slow leak. At first, I didn't even realize the air was draining. Jessica started working late more often. She said her company was rolling out a new surgical device and that the pressure was intense. Long meetings, tight deadlines, late-night prep calls with the marketing team. It made sense. That's who she was. She'd always been a high performer, always pushing for more. I didn't question it. Then the trips started coming. At first, they were just once every few weeks, usually a Friday to Sunday. Sales conference in San Diego. Client onboarding in Reno. That sort of thing. After a while, it felt like she was gone every other weekend. Sometimes back-to-back weekends. Always with the same story. We're trying to break into new hospital networks. I have to be present. I'm not dumb. I noticed, but I trusted her. I'd always trusted her. We didn't have that kind of relationship, the kind where you check each other's locations or scroll through texts behind someone's back. That wasn't us. Or so I thought. What really started to stick in my craw was her phone. It was always in her hand, or in her lap, or flipped face down on the table. Once upon a time, she'd leave it charging in the kitchen like I did. I used to grab it to Google something if mine was dead. We even knew each other's passcodes, not because we snooped, but out of convenience. But out of nowhere, that changed. One night, I reached over to grab her phone to check the weather app. We were planning a hike for the weekend. It asked for a passcode. The one I knew didn't work. You change your password? I asked offhand. Yeah, work made us update everything. Security policy. I shrugged it off, but it kept nagging me. She didn't offer the new one. Didn't even ask why I needed it. Just a brush off. A couple weeks later, I noticed her taking her phone into the bathroom. Every time. Not once or twice, every time. She used to scroll through Instagram in the bathtub, music playing. Now it was dead quiet. 10, 15 minutes with the door shut. I knocked once to ask if she was okay and heard the sound of her flipping the lock. At dinner, her phone was upside down. At night, it was under her pillow. I tried not to jump to conclusions. Maybe work was stressing her out. Maybe she needed privacy. Who doesn't need space now and then? But deep down, I was starting to feel like a stranger in my own house. I brought it up gently one night while we were doing dishes. Hey, you've been kinda glued to your phone lately. Everything okay? She turned fast, too fast, dish still in her hand. What, are you keeping tabs on me now? She said. You think I'm hiding something? No, I said, holding my hands up. Just, you seem kind of tense lately. That's all. I figured it might help talk about it. She rolled her eyes and walked off, muttering something about how I always blow things out of proportion. That was the moment I started second-guessing myself. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was being needy. But the thing is, I'm not the jealous type. I'm really not. I've never needed to look over her shoulder. Never felt insecure about who she was with or what she was doing. But this was different. Something about the way she looked at me, like I was accusing her when all I'd done was ask a question. Something about how quickly she twisted the conversation into me being the problem. That's when I felt the first chill, like something real and cold was creeping into the space between us. Still, I told myself, you're probably just being paranoid. She's under pressure. Work is tough. Life gets busy. Don't go inventing problems. But I'd be lying if I said the doubts didn't grow roots. They did. Quiet ones. Silent ones. But they were there. A couple months after things started feeling off, I was sitting at the kitchen table sorting through a pile of mail and online statements. It was tax season, and I was getting ahead on organizing receipts and expenses. I do the finances in our household, not because Jessica can't, but because she always said it gave her a headache. I didn't mind. That day I had a couple hours to kill before dinner, so I opened up our shared credit card account to start marking off business expenses from personal ones. I was mostly looking for my own charges, travel, office supplies, the usual. Then I started going through hers. She uses the card a lot when she's out of town for work. Usually food, Ubers, hotel stays. Nothing out of the ordinary. But then something odd popped up. A hotel charge from. That caught my eye because it's 10 minutes from our house. I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was a transaction that posted late. Happens all the time. I made a note and kept going. 2 pages later, another one. This time it was from another hotel, also here in town. That's when I slowed down. I went back and started checking dates. And the pattern hit me like a brick to the chest. Every weekend Jessica claimed she was flying out for work. Boise, Phoenix, Sacramento. There was a corresponding hotel charge right here in our zip code. I checked our calendar. She'd blocked those weekends off as work travel. Flights, layovers, all that. But the charges didn't lie. They were all within a 15-mile radius of our house. At first, I told myself it had to be some mix-up. Maybe the hotel chain processes all their payments through the same corporate location, and that's why it shows up local. Or maybe Jessica booked rooms for colleagues. Something. I wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation. But then I noticed something I couldn't ignore. Room service. A specific charge on one of receipts. Dinner for 2. Another one from another hotel. Bottle of champagne. Room service. 2 entrees. I remember sitting back in my chair and just staring at the screen. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was frozen, like my blood had turned cold. I got up, poured myself a glass of water, and stood in the kitchen with my hand on the counter, just staring out the window at nothing. Jessica was supposed to be in Denver that weekend. But suddenly, I couldn't remember if I had actually seen any proof of her leaving. I didn't drive her to the airport. She'd started taking Ubers to save time. That's what she said. Said parking at the airport was too expensive. That's when the quiet panic started to crawl up my spine. I needed more than credit card charges. I needed something concrete. I called the hotel, told them I was doing expense reports and had lost the receipt, asked if they could send a copy to my email. The lady on the phone was polite, didn't even question it. Said she'd forward it right over. 15 minutes later, it hit my inbox. The reservation was in Jessica's name. Check-in Friday, check-out Sunday. Room 406. And under additional guests, it listed Mr. Tyler Simmons. Tyler. I stared at that name like it was a snake on my screen. I didn't recognize it. No mention of him ever. Not at dinners, not in passing, not in any of her dozens of long-winded stories about coworkers. Nothing. Then I saw it. Room service charges for Friday night. 2 entrees, dessert, and champagne. All billed to the room. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should scream, or cry, or throw my laptop across the room. Instead, I just sat there, absolutely still. My thoughts were racing but going nowhere. I kept thinking, maybe it's work-related. Maybe he's a client. Maybe they double-booked. But every explanation I tried to reach for dissolved before I could finish thinking it. I didn't confront her. I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I started digging. Quietly. I opened up the other hotels on the statements. Same process. Called in one of them. Asked for the receipt. Got it. Same deal. Jessica on the booking. A guest name. Tyler Simmons again. Same guy. Over and over. That name was like a drumbeat in my head. That weekend, while Jessica was at a conference in Scottsdale, I barely moved. Barely ate. I couldn't concentrate on anything. Not TV, not reading, nothing. I just sat on the couch, phone in hand, looking at her Instagram stories. Pictures of hotel lobbies, coffee cups, airplane wings. All stuff you could post from anywhere. She even texted me, saying how tired she was from travel. Said she missed me. That was the moment I decided I couldn't keep pretending. I needed the truth. Not a hunch. Not some half-baked conclusion. Cold, hard facts. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I looked up a private investigator. I know how that sounds. Over the top. Suspicious. Desperate. But I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. Like I was living in someone else's house, someone else's marriage. And I needed to know what was real and what was just make-believe. I told the investigator I needed to know where my wife really went on her next business trip. That's all I said. And he said, "We'll find out." Jessica had another trip planned for the following weekend. This time she said it was San Diego. Some kind of medical conference about surgical robotics, apparently. She even left a glossy pamphlet on the counter that looked like it had been printed off Google Images. I didn't say anything. I played it cool, told her I hoped she had a safe flight, and to let me know when she landed. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and wheeled her little carry-on to the waiting Uber. I watched her from the living room window as she waved goodbye, phone already in hand, tapping away. The private investigator I hired, a guy named Ed, said he'd take it from there. Told me to go about my weekend like normal and wait for updates that I try to stay distracted, but my phone never left my pocket. Every buzz had my heart jumping. Around 8 p.m. Friday night, I got the first photo. Jessica, walking into the Belridge Hotel, 15 minutes from our front porch, arm in arm with some guy I didn't recognize. She was wearing a black jacket I'd never seen before, hair down, laughing. He was maybe a few years younger than me, clean-cut, stylish, cocky-looking. The kind of guy who probably took gym selfies and had one of those overly curated Instagram profiles. Ed sent a few more pictures. Them at the front desk. Her leaning her head on his shoulder while they waited for the key cards. Then one of them in the elevator, her hand on his chest, his face close to hers. One more outside their room door, room 418. They were kissing like they hadn't seen each other in years. Like high school kids. I just sat there on the couch, staring at my phone, barely blinking. I didn't move. I must have sat there for a solid hour, scrolling back and forth through the pictures, zooming in, looking at the details. The way she tilted her head when she smiled at him. How close they stood. How relaxed she looked, like there was nothing in the world to worry about. Like I didn't exist. I didn't even feel anger at first. It was something else. Like my whole body had gone numb, and I was watching it happen to someone else. I kept thinking about all the times she came home from trips tired, told me about boring panels, annoying flights, delayed Ubers. All of it felt like theater now. A carefully rehearsed show. The next morning, Ed texted again. Said they never left the hotel. Spotted them in the lobby getting coffee, then disappearing back upstairs. Same story Saturday night. Sunday morning, he confirmed they checked out around noon. She came home late that evening. Said her flight was delayed. I was on the couch when she walked in, rolling her suitcase behind her like nothing happened. She looked a little flustered. She kicked off her sneakers and started unpacking in the front hall like she always did. Flights were a mess, she said casually. Apparently half the airport was short-staffed. I almost missed my connection. I nodded. Didn't say much. She kept talking. Said the conference was dull, the hotel food terrible, and that she just wanted a long shower and to crash early. I stood up and said, "We need to talk." She glanced at me and rolled her eyes. "Can it wait till tomorrow? I'm seriously exhausted." "No," I said. "It can't. Jess, I know about the hotels." She froze. That's the only word for it, froze. Like a movie character when time stops. She didn't even blink. Her hands stilled in the middle of folding a sweatshirt. For a second, I thought she might pretend she didn't hear me. Then, slowly, she straightened up and turned to face me. Her face went pale. Not like she was embarrassed. Like she'd just seen something behind me that scared her. "What are you talking about?" she asked. Her voice cracked just slightly, like she was trying to keep it calm, but wasn't sure how. I didn't answer right away. I walked over to the kitchen table, picked up the printed receipts, and set them down in front of her. Riverfront Inn, Evergreen Lodge, Belridge Hotel. All her name. All the weekends she was supposedly across state lines. This is what I'm talking about. She looked at them like they were written in a foreign language, then shook her head. "This isn't what it looks like," she said quickly. "These are old bookings. Work stuff. You booked a suite with a guy named Tyler Simmons?" I asked. That name hit her like a slap. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She didn't answer. I have pictures, I said. You, at the Belridge. Holding hands. In the elevator. Kissing him in front of your room. That's when it all cracked. Her shoulders sank. Her lips quivered. She looked down at the floor like a child caught lying about breaking something. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered. I didn't respond. I just stood there, arms crossed, heart thudding like a drum in my chest. She started to cry. It wasn't planned. It got out of control. I didn't say anything. She took a step toward me, but I stepped back. Not out of anger. Just instinct. I didn't want to hurt you, she said. Please, let's just talk about it. I looked at her, the woman I'd shared a life with for over a decade, and realized I didn't recognize her at all. Not anymore. I didn't mean for this to happen, Jessica sobbed, sitting at the edge of our couch with her hands covering her face. Her mascara had started to smear, and she kept wiping at her eyes like she thought it might make me feel sorry for her. It got complicated. It's over now. I swear. I didn't say anything. I just stood in the living room, staring at the woman I thought I knew. That woman was gone. She looked up at me with bloodshot eyes. It didn't mean anything. I tilted my head. That phrase, right there, hit me in a way I wasn't ready for. Didn't mean anything? It meant enough to sneak around for months. It meant enough to lie to my face again and again. It meant enough to make up fake flight details and to pack suitcases for trips that never happened. It meant enough to book hotel rooms and order champagne and whisper things into someone else's ear behind closed doors. And then, just like that, something inside me switched. I wasn't numb anymore. I was angry. You want to tell me about the joint account? I asked. She blinked, confused. What? I walked over to the dining table and picked up a stack of printed credit card statements and bank transactions. I held them up and then let them fall onto the table. They fanned out like a poker hand, each page another reminder of how blind I'd been. Gifts, I said, pointing at one charge. A $700 watch from a boutique downtown. She opened her mouth to speak, but I kept going. Designer clothes. Dinners at places we've never even been to. Wine delivery services. A spa weekend in Napa you claimed was for a sales conference. Her mouth closed. Her face drained of color. You used our money, Jess. Our money. The stuff we worked for together. It wasn't like that, she started. No. I snapped. How was it then? Help me out. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you drained our savings to play house with some guy behind my back. She leaned forward, shaking her head like that would undo any of it. It got out of hand, Luke. I wasn't thinking clearly. It started small. Just texting. Then we met for coffee. It wasn't serious. I couldn't even laugh. It wasn't funny. It was insulting. And Natalie? I asked. Her face twisted slightly. What? You told me you were staying at her place more than once. Especially that weekend in November. Remember? You said her car broke down and she needed help. Jessica looked like someone had just turned off the oxygen in the room. She stood up slowly. Look. She didn't know, I said. I called her. Silence. I didn't tell her anything, I added. I just asked casually about that weekend. You weren't there. She hadn't seen you in weeks. Jessica wrapped her arms around herself. I didn't think you'd check. Of course you didn't, I interrupted. Because you counted on me being the nice guy. The guy who always trusts. The guy who doesn't pry. The guy who doesn't ask too many questions. She didn't deny it. She just sat down again, like her legs had given out. I never thought you'd find out, she whispered. I never meant to hurt anyone. You dragged your sister into it without telling her. You made her your cover story. Jessica rubbed her forehead like she had a headache. It was just easier. That's what she said. Easier. Like lying was just part of the routine. Like it was an errand on her to-do list, pick up dry cleaning, grab coffee, lie to husband. I couldn't even look at her. I picked up my keys and stepped outside onto the porch. The evening air was cold, sharp against my skin, but it felt like the only real thing left in the world. I stood there for a while, watching the wind stir the leaves on the lawn. My hands were shaking. I didn't know if it was from rage or heartbreak or just pure disbelief. After a few minutes, I sat on the porch steps, pulled out my phone, and texted Natalie again. I thanked her for being honest with me and apologized for dragging her into this. She replied right away. I can't believe she used me like that. I'm sorry, look. That's so messed up. I stared at her message for a long time. Here's the thing about betrayal. It's not just the act. It's the web it builds. All the little threads that stretch and stick to people who didn't even ask to be part of it. Jessica's lies weren't just between her and me. They reached out and pulled in her own family, used them as shields. And I realized then that this wasn't just about one guy. It wasn't about a fling. It was about the way she treated the truth like it didn't matter. Back inside, she was curled up on the couch, eyes puffy, tissues in her lap. I didn't say anything. I just walked past her and into the guest room. I closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the wall. It was the first time in over a decade that I felt like I didn't live with my wife anymore. And I think, deep down, I knew I never really would again. The day I handed Jessica the divorce papers was the day the calm ended. Up until that point, she still had this look in her, like everything could be patched up with enough fake tears and half-truths. But once she saw that envelope, something changed. Her expression went from stunned to furious in about 2 seconds flat. She didn't even open it right away. Just stood in the middle of our living room staring at it like it was a live grenade. I didn't say a word. I wasn't going to explain what she already knew. She sat down hard on the edge of the ottoman and finally ripped it open, skimming through the front page. "You're actually doing this," she snapped. I nodded once. "Yeah, I am." Her face twisted. "You'll regret this." Then she stormed out, slamming the front door so hard the photos in the hallway rattled on the wall. I sat on the couch for a good 10 minutes, just staring at the blank TV screen. It wasn't that I didn't feel anything. It was that I'd already felt everything. At that point, all I had left was resolve. That weekend, she came back to get her stuff. She didn't call, didn't text, just showed up in front of the house like she still owned it. I looked out the window and saw her standing there with her arms crossed, waiting. And behind her, Tyler, sitting in the driver's seat of a silver BMW. Sunglasses on, hands on the wheel, like he was waiting for his Uber Eats order. He didn't even get out of the car. I opened the door just wide enough to talk. "You can take your things," I said, "but you're not coming in here alone." She scoffed. "What? You think I'm gonna steal your blender?" "I don't trust you," I replied. "After everything, you should understand why." That's when she lost it. "You think you can just kick me out of this house like I'm nothing? I gave you years of my life. You're not going to get away with this. I'll take everything. The house, the money. You'll be living in some tiny apartment eating microwaved soup while I move on with someone who actually cares about me." I leaned on the doorframe. "Then why is he still sitting in the car?" That shut her up for a moment. She glared at me, nostrils flaring like she wanted to break something. I stepped outside, locked the door behind me, and stood there with her as she loaded a few bags into her car. No more than a suitcase, some boxes, and a trash bag full of clothes. She didn't even look at me after that. After she left, I called my lawyer and we froze the joint accounts. I had a bad feeling, and I was right. She'd already tried to pull $2,000 from our savings that same morning. She claimed it was for housing expenses. Meanwhile, she was posting pictures of lattes and new shoes on her story like she was going through some sort of midlife makeover. She tried using the affair in court, claimed she felt neglected, that I was emotionally unavailable, that she made a mistake and deserved forgiveness, not punishment. Her lawyer leaned into the whole, "he's cold and distant," angle like it was some kind of get-out-of-jail-free card. Didn't work. The judge wasn't buying it, especially after I showed him the timeline, the receipts, and the PI's photos. He raised an eyebrow when he got to the hotel bookings, said something about a consistent pattern of deception. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. It didn't stop there. Apparently, she tried to patch things up with Tyler too. I didn't find out until the day after the court hearing. She must have thought once the divorce was in motion, she and her new guy could ride off into the sunset together. But Tyler? He had other plans. He dumped her. Not in person, mind you. By text. I know this because, in a plot twist worthy of a bad sitcom, he texted me. I don't even know how he got my number. Maybe Jessica left her phone unlocked. Maybe he was trying to smooth things over. Either way, I got a message that said, "Hey man, I didn't realize you guys were still together. My bad." That's it. My bad. I sat there in disbelief for a full minute before replying. "You didn't know she was married?" He replied, "She said you two were separated and just figuring out the paperwork." I'm not into drama. I'm out. Cool. Thanks, dude. I didn't answer after that. What was the point? He didn't care. He was just trying to make himself feel better. Good luck to the next woman who ends up with that guy. He'll probably fold like a lawn chair the minute anything gets complicated. As for Jessica, she stopped trying to talk to me for a bit after that. I think she thought if she lost both the marriage and Tyler in the same week, the next logical step was to go silent and regroup. But I knew her too well. She wasn't done. Not by a long shot. It was only a matter of time before the spiral got worse. And I was just starting to realize that I was finally free from the chaos I didn't even know I'd been drowning in. It had been quiet for a while. I thought maybe Jessica had finally decided to deal with her mess on her own. I didn't hear from her for about a week and a half after the trial. The house was finally starting to feel like mine again. I'd even slept through the night for a couple days in a row, which was saying something. Then came the night I heard the pounding on the front door. It was 2:08. I remember because I checked my phone thinking it had to be a dream. But then it came again, loud, angry fists slamming against the wood. And through the door, I heard her. "You ruined my life." I sat up in bed, heart racing. I peeked out the bedroom window and saw her standing there in the porch light. She looked like a ghost of herself. Hair a mess, makeup smudged, coat slipping off one shoulder. She was barefoot, just yelling into the night. "You think this is over? You think you can just throw me away?" I didn't answer the door. I didn't even go downstairs. I did what I knew I had to do. I hit record on my phone and then called the non-emergency police line. "Hi, my ex-wife is outside my house. She's intoxicated and screaming. I'm not engaging with her. I just need help getting her off my property." They sent 2 officers within 10 minutes. By the time they pulled up, she was sitting on the front steps crying, mascara running all the way to her jawline. She looked up at them and started yelling again. "He locked me out. He abandoned me." I stayed inside, phone still recording, until one of the officers knocked and asked me to step out. I showed them from my camera. The officer gave me a nod, then turned back to her. They didn't arrest her, just calmly walked her to their car and said she needed to leave the premises. One of them offered to call her a cab, but she refused. Said she'd walk. I don't know where she went. I didn't ask, but the officer told me, before leaving, make sure to document everything. If it happens again, we escalate. I stood there for a long time after they left. Just me, the porch light, and the cold. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel much of anything. Mostly, I just felt tired. Like all the weight of the last few months had settled on my shoulders. The next day, I forwarded everything to my lawyer. He said it would help in court at the next hearings. I didn't even want revenge. I just wanted it all to be over. Then, a week later, I got a call from Natalie, Jessica's younger sister. "She got fired," Natalie said. I blinked. "What?" "Jessica. She's out. They let her go Tuesday." I leaned back in my office chair. "Why?" Natalie hesitated for a second, then sighed. "You know Tyler worked under her, right?" My jaw clenched. "No, I didn't." "Well, apparently there's a very strict policy about supervisors dating anyone in their department, especially if there's travel involved." I didn't say anything. Word got around after the divorce stuff started, and someone in her office, I think one of her coworkers, reported it. She had been bragging about him a while back. Guess they didn't appreciate being lied to. That hit me harder than I expected. Not because I felt sorry for her, but because of how quickly everything was unraveling. No boyfriend, no job, no house. And as far as I knew, she hadn't landed anywhere stable. I later found out she'd been couch surfing, sleeping in her car some nights. I got a text from her mom not long after, asking if I'd consider helping Jessica out financially just until she's back on her feet. I didn't respond to that message. Her parents had originally begged me to forgive her. Her dad called me twice, asking if we could all sit down and talk things out like adults. But now, they were starting to realize the extent of what she'd done. I think her mom was still holding out hope that I'd swoop in and save her from her own mistakes. But I wasn't that guy anymore. That guy was gone. I'd been lied to, stolen from, used, and screamed at on my own front porch in the middle of the night. That wasn't a marriage. That wasn't love. That was manipulation from someone who didn't think she'd ever have to pay the price. And now the price was coming due. It felt strange, watching it all come apart from a distance. Not cheering, not feeling smug. Just watching. Like someone standing at the edge of a field after a storm, seeing what's left behind. I didn't wish her harm. I wasn't that cold. But I also wasn't about to throw her a lifeline after she cut mine and then set fire to the rope. She'd made her choices. Now she could live with them. It's funny how sometimes the people you expect the least from end up being the ones who help you the most. After everything with Jessica came to light, I figured I'd be handling the fallout alone. I wasn't expecting anyone to check in on me, especially not from her side of the family. But Natalie did. Natalie, her younger sister. At first, she texted just to say she was sorry for being dragged into everything. Said she had no idea Jessica had used her as an alibi. She sounded genuinely embarrassed. I could tell by the way she wrote short messages, carefully worded, like she didn't want to overstep. I appreciated that. Most people either tiptoed around me or avoided the whole thing. I told her she didn't have to apologize for her sister's choices. That led to a longer exchange. We started texting more often, at first about the court stuff, then about everything else. She asked how I was sleeping, if I'd been eating, if I'd seen any good movies lately. One night, after a long workday, she dropped off a container of chili she made. Just left it on my porch with a note that said, "I remember you liked this recipe. No pressure, just thought you could use a break from takeout." That gesture hit me harder than I expected. We started talking more after that. We'd have coffee once or twice a week, nothing formal. Just meet up, talk for an hour or so. One time, she brought an old photo album from a family trip they'd all taken to the coast years ago. She showed me a picture of Jessica in high school, awkward smile, braces, hair in a messy ponytail. Back when she still liked reading and didn't care what brand of bag she had, Natalie said with a sad smile. We shared stories, a lot of laughs, even a few heavy moments. Turns out Natalie and Jessica were never especially close. They'd grown apart over the years. Jessica had always been the more driven one, while Natalie leaned into creativity. She taught art at a local charter school and volunteered at a community center on weekends. She was the opposite of Jessica in every way: quiet, honest, thoughtful. One night, she came by with Thai food. We ate at my dining table, the one that used to feel too big for just me. The conversation went long. It wasn't about the divorce anymore. It was about life. Books we loved. Why she never got married. The kind of stuff you talk about when there's nothing left to hide. When the meal was done, and we were still talking, she looked at me for a long second and said, "You know what's strange?" I raised an eyebrow. "What?" "I've known you for almost a decade," she said, "but I think I'm just now meeting the real you." I didn't know what to say to that, but I smiled. Something shifted that night. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, like a door slowly creaking open after being stuck for too long. I didn't rush toward it, and neither did she, but we both felt it. Feelings developed. Slowly. Carefully. I didn't trust easily anymore. And Natalie never pressured me. She didn't play games, didn't try to fix me, didn't act like she had all the answers. She just listened. And when she spoke, it was always honest and kind, even when the truth wasn't pretty. Then Jessica found out. It didn't take much. A mutual friend must have seen us together and ran their mouth. I got a string of texts from Jessica that night, each more unhinged than the last. "You're doing this out of revenge? Her? Of all people. You two are sick. I hope everyone sees you for what you are." And that was just the beginning. She posted vague, bitter things online. Some people don't wait long to move on. Must be nice to pretend like nothing happened. Stuff like that. Thinly veiled jabs. Some of her friends liked the posts, maybe out of loyalty. But most of them stayed silent. A few even messaged me privately. Said they knew the truth. That nobody blamed me. One of them, a mutual friend from our old couple's game nights, wrote, "Jess always acted like she was the star of the show. You were just the guy behind the curtain making sure the lights stayed on. It's good to see you doing something for yourself for once." Natalie, for her part, took it all in stride. She didn't feed into Jessica's tantrums or defend herself online. She just shrugged and said, "Let her shout." People who yell that loud are usually trying to drown out their own guilt. I asked her once if it felt weird, us spending time together, given the circumstances. She nodded. A little. But weird isn't always bad. Sometimes it's just different. And different can be a good thing. I didn't know where things were headed. I still don't, really. But I knew I wasn't pretending anymore. I wasn't playing the loyal husband to someone who saw me as disposable. For the first time in a long while, I was just me. And somehow, in all the mess, I'd found someone who was okay with that. When the court proceedings were finally over, I received everything that belonged to me. She left with almost nothing. Half of our joint property consisted of a small amount of money that I paid for the sofa and television. Now I was free and could build a new life. Selling the house was harder than I expected, not emotionally, but logistically. There were a lot of memories tied up in that place, sure, but they felt like someone else's memories. Like I was walking through the life of a man I used to be. It wasn't my home anymore. Not really. Just a shell with old photographs and a fridge full of takeout containers. The market was good, and it sold fast. I packed up the place room by room, sorting boxes with care at first, then with less and less attachment. It felt like peeling off a layer of old skin. Natalie came over most nights to help. We put music on low, work side by side, sometimes talking, sometimes just moving in comfortable silence. One night, after we finished wrapping up the dishes, I looked at her and said, "I don't know where I'd be if you hadn't been around." She smiled, probably still yelling at a roll of packing tape. I laughed harder than I had in months. A few days before the final closing, I got the call I'd been waiting for. The job in Colorado came through. It was a big opportunity, project lead on a major infrastructure overhaul. I'd been holding my breath waiting for it, and when the offer came, it felt like someone finally opened a window in a stuffy room. I accepted the job that afternoon. New city, new chapter. Before the move, I invited Natalie on a trip. Just a short vacation. Nothing over the top. I needed to get out of my head and out of town for a bit. Hawaii felt right. Somewhere quiet, somewhere far enough away that everything back home felt small. She hesitated at first, said she didn't want things to look like we were running away. "We're not running," I told her. "We're resting." She nodded. "Then yeah, I could use some rest." We booked a modest little resort on the Big Island. Nothing fancy. No swim-up bar or luxury spa treatments. Just a clean room, a balcony, and the ocean within walking distance. The kind of place where you hear birds in the morning and wind through the palms at night. The morning of the flight, we got to the airport early, bags checked, coffee in hand. We were waiting at the gate when I saw her. Jessica. She was across the terminal, walking fast, eyes locked on me like a heat-seeking missile. I recognized the stride, the same one she used when she thought she could talk her way out of a bad deal. She was wearing jeans, some wrinkled blazer, hair pulled into a ponytail that looked thrown together in a hurry. Her expression said everything. She'd found out. And she wasn't handling it well. "Look," she shouted, drawing the attention of at least a dozen people nearby. "You've got to be kidding me." I didn't stand up. I just looked at her calmly and stayed seated next to Natalie, who didn't flinch. Jessica kept coming, louder now. "You're taking her on a vacation? What is this? Some kind of revenge fantasy?" Airport security appeared before she could get close enough to cause any damage. One of the officers gently stepped between us and asked her to calm down. She started arguing, insisting she had the right to talk to me, but they weren't having it. She was escorted out of the area, still ranting, her voice echoing as she was led away. Natalie looked over at me. "You okay?" I took a breath, let it out slow. "Yeah, I think I am." Now I'm sitting on the balcony of our rental, watching the early light roll across the ocean. Natalie's inside, reading with her legs tucked under her, wearing that soft hoodie she basically lives in. I can hear the faint sound of waves, the occasional gull, the breeze pushing through the leaves. It's peaceful. Really peaceful. There's a quiet between us that doesn't feel empty. It feels safe. I'm not checking her phone in my head. I'm not reading into pauses or eyeing every late text. For the first time in a long while, I'm not playing detective in my own relationship. We're not calling this anything official. We've talked about it. There's no rush, no pressure. We're both a little bruised, a little cautious. But there's trust. And truth. That's a pretty solid place to start. Sometimes we just sit together without saying much at all. That used to scare me, silence. Now it's something I look forward to. You learn a lot in the quiet. Jessica's story ended the way it had to. I didn't make that call, she did, over and over again, in 100 little ways. I just finally stopped pretending it didn't matter. She spun out, and now she's living in the wake of her own decisions. I don't take any joy in that. I really don't. But I also don't feel guilt for walking away. I gave everything I had. More than I should have, in hindsight. And now? Now I'm starting over. Not perfectly. Not pain-free. But with my eyes wide open. Share your thoughts in the comments. Is it ever okay to date someone related to your ex if you both feel a real connection? If you like the story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.